Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Double Vulcan roll for everybody because today we're watching Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 27, The Alternative Factor. This series is great. There's not really much I can say other than I look forward to showing up each and every time to learn more and more about the original crew, where everything started, where the entire universe, canon, mythos appears inside this series, and it is absolutely fantastic, my friends. So let's get into it. But before that, if you could do me a favor, hit that like button, smash that subscribe, ringy ding ding that bell for notifications, and you'll be alerted each and every time we go live with any of our science fiction fare. And of course, if you'd like any of that fare early or in its full-length format, the link to the Patreon's in the description. Not a fan of Patreon? That's perfectly fine. Join us here on YouTube memberships. All episodes are a day early, and any bonus content like my Expanse case files or our upcoming Star Trek personnel files will be available to you. But all that is then, my friends, and this is now. And now it's time to sit back, grab a cup of coffee or whatever your beverage of choice happens to be, and let's watch some Star Trek, the original series, Season 1, Episode 27, The Alternative Factor. Prepare to engage maximum warp reaction. And away we go. Look at that beauty. With a bit of a darkness nighttime effect. Ooh, she pops, she pops. Where is Sulu? Who's this dickhead flying the...
Iron silicon base, oxygen, hydrogen atmosphere, largely arid, no discernible life, no surprises.
That's never the way it works.
About 4 more orbits ought to do it, Mr. Leslie. That'll wrap it up.
Mr. Leslie?
Aye, aye, Captain.
Captain.
Whoa! Really good movement work by Nimoy there.
The entire magnetic field in this solar system simply blinked. The planet below, the mass of which we're measuring, attained zero gravity.
All the crosstalk. Everybody checking in stations.
What you're describing
Is non-existence.
Standard general alert signal from Starfleet Command, Captain.
Did it happen system-wide? It's not a local thing?
Scanners now report a life object on the planet's surface below.
You just did a complete life survey 5 minutes ago. How's it you're just picking it up now?
Inexplicable, Captain. This reading began at approximately the moment that the pulsation phenomenon began to subside. Body temperature, 98.5 Fahrenheit. Mass, electrical impulses, movement,
Humanoid.
human, Captain.
Explanation.
None.
Speculation.
Interesting choice for a shot here.
Present any danger to the ship?
Possible.
Kirk looking up at Spock. You don't see that a lot. It's usually on the same level.
Any word comes through from Starfleet Command, pipe it down immediately. Communications, priority 1.
Woo! Okay, so Jim's going to tell us about the final frontier here. Okay, so if Starfleet immediately reached out, something tells me that this phenomenon was not local and was something that everybody experienced, which would be maybe the biggest example of incredible divine type of power that we've seen. Now, is this naturally occurring? You know, somebody apparently appeared down on that planet. So is this some type of like time event? Or, you know, they said that, you know, the magnetism or whatever just winked out. So whatever that means, you know, again, was it something that somebody did or something that the universe did? And again, this type of wide-reaching power, if I'm understanding it correctly, is pretty terrifying. Meanwhile, on the set of MASH, I do MASH on the Patreon, by the way.
While investigating an uncharted planet, the Enterprise, and at least this entire quadrant of space,
Oh my God, 4 dead red shirts.
sensors have reported the presence of a human being on the planet below who might be connected with the phenomenon. With my first officer and a security team, I have set out in search of him.
Oh, that's that big sumbitch we've seen before. That dude who's third in line right now. I love how they use the stuntmen for, security or the red shirts, because they're usually just like these huge dudes, which is fitting. It makes sense, right? I Love exterior shots with them too. I'm sure RCA did too. The colors on all that shit pop. Great shot. It's like Flash Gordon.
We can still stop him, but I need your help.
Acting. Oh, well, he's dead. No, maybe not. Leonard, get ready.
Report on the dilithium crystals, Captain. Whatever that phenomenon was, it drained almost all of our crystals completely. It could mean trouble.
Our orbit will begin to decay in 10 hours. Re-amplify immediately.
Aye, aye, sir.
That was an interesting bit of information.
Scanners indicate situation normal.
Nothing.
There's that shot again.
Whatever it was unquestionably widespread. It was strongest here, on the planet beneath us.
It's the epicenter.
Red 2 message in 1 minute, Captain. Starfleet Command. Code Factor 1, sir.
Oh boy. We know code factor 1 is...
Code Factor 1.
Invasion status.
Holy... Okay, it's invasion.
Message ready, Captain. Main screen coming on.
Oh, we got a main screen message. Holy shit.
Enterprise standing by, Commodore.
It occurred in every quadrant of the galaxy and far beyond. With normal magnetic and gravimetric fields, time warp distortion, and possible radiation variations.
I like the Admiral thing.
My best guess is it could be a prelude to invasion.
Exactly our consensus. I'm giving you the job of finding out specifically.
What makes you think that?
Can you assign me other starships as a reserve?
Negative. I'm evacuating all Starfleet units and personnel within 100 parsecs of your position.
You are expendable.
You mean we're the bait?
Good luck.
Good. That's not what I wanted to hear, Admiral.
From the top, Mr. Spock.
From the top.
I'll talk to our unexpected guest. Maybe he can provide some answers.
That's how I came to be down there, Captain.
Interesting. We have a transition. I wonder who the director is. This is a new director, I think.
But inside he's a hideous, murdering monster. I'll get him, Captain. I swear it.
This is crazy. Okay.
Thing. Destroyed your entire civilization.
To the last man, woman, and child. You believe me, don't you?
No, I don't.
Our ship sustained a number of incredible effects.
That was he. He's death. Anti-life. He lives to destroy.
Anti-life. That sounds like DC Comics.
Help me in visiting justice and vengeance upon him.
My only cause is the safety of my ship and the mission we're on.
It's my captain.
You'll beam down with me. I'll check your story out.
Jim. I mean, no fear, right? No fear.
I ordered reconfirmation on our sensors. They indicate no living creature on this planet.
It's him. Right?
Why do you give credence to this man?
I fail to comprehend your indignation, sir. I've simply made the logical deduction that you are a liar.
You know, nothing personal.
You come back in, is it?
Can you identify that?
Trying, Captain.
Lazarus!
Oh, his name is Lazarus. Did I miss that? I must have. I must have been talking. So biblically, just as a footnote, Lazarus was someone that came back from the dead. What in the hell are we doing here? Man, this is strange. This is definitely a new director. I'd be shocked if this was anybody we've seen before, because this is some different shit. The camera twirl, I don't think we've seen that at all. And the continuous twirl, that shit's hard. So, early speculation, this guy's kind of like multiple personality, maybe? Let's see who comes back. It's like he went somewhere and fought, and then... Ooh, wow, they're bringing the wind machines in.
I told you it was a thing. All white, black, and empty. A terrible emptiness.
Let's get back to the ship.
He'll kill us all if we don't kill him first.
This guy's doing a good job. His first line was a little suspect, but...
It seems to be the source of the phenomenon which has struck the Enterprise and all sections of the galaxy.
God, that ship is so absolutely gorgeous.
The story he tells me about the humanoid continues to trouble me.
Can we do a full workup here? Tell that dickhead to get out of Sulu's seat. What's his name? Leslie, yeah.
His wounds testify to an apparent confrontation with something.
Affirmative.
Yeah.
I only know for certain that the occurrence of the phenomenon coincides exactly with the moments that Lazarus has his alleged confrontations.
Huh.
Maybe I'm imagining things, and maybe I'm not. You tell me.
You tell me. That's why you brought me down here, isn't it?
Why then, when I returned, there wasn't a trace of that wound on his forehead? Not even a bruise. It was like he had never been injured.
Did he get to the point fast enough, Jim?
Where is he?
I don't know, Jim. This is a big ship.
You let him out?
Hi.
Hi.
Hey.
Is that an order, Lieutenant?
I know what you mean.
Reamplification finished on the dilithium crystals?
Yeah, ready and waiting.
I like that character, the lieutenant that's working on the dilithium crystals. She has a really, really solid delivery. Very smooth. I always like the cafeteria, too. We don't see it too much. We're either playing chess or playing music there. So now let's see if it's centered on the Enterprise or on the planet. If it's still the planet, then here we go. We know who the origin is, if it's the planet or this guy. Where is he now? Okay, yeah, all right. I thought he was in engineering all of a sudden.
You decided to help me yet?
He's switching. He's switching each event. Wait a minute. Is this motherfucker Charlie X? No, he's not. I thought he was. I didn't mean that he was Charlie X. I meant he was the actor that played Charlie X. For a second, I thought he was.
I warn you, Captain. You'll give me the crystals.
Don't threaten me, Lazarus.
Yeah, get fucked, man. Put him in the brig.
Captain, I'll have my vengeance.
Are we gonna let him walk around the, after a threat like that, walk around the ship? Yeah, dude. This is where he's gonna switch. So I'm still confused if this is occurring galaxy-wide every time he switches, because that's gonna be off-putting for everyone, everywhere, all at once. Now he's not gonna have the scar. So it's a physical flip too. Damn, why do we have to label everything? Oh, cool. I didn't know that's what they did.
Lieutenant Masters, Captain's calling.
Lieutenant Masters. What the hell was... Did he kill him or knock him out?
My assistant and I were... Captain! Captain!
Lieutenant, what is it? What's wrong? Lieutenant?
I hope he didn't kill her.
Reports Lazarus missing.
This is a little disjointed, but okay.
2 of our dilithium crystals are missing. And without them, the Enterprise cannot operate at full power.
Is he losing facial hair?
Find my enemy. Find the beast. And you'll find the crystals.
It's him, yeah.
He can compute formulas to destroy races. He can steal an energy source for his vehicle so he can escape from me.
From a what?
Are you deaf as well as blind?
Sit down.
Put him in the fucking brig, man. This guy's nuts.
Organize a search party immediately. Mr. Lazarus will beam down with us.
Thank you, Captain.
Don't thank me.
You may not have reason to thank me,
Yeah.
depending on what we find.
They might be leaving your ass down here.
Mr. Spock,
Unable to locate the source of radiation.
why not? You had it spotted from the Enterprise.
It has simply disappeared, Captain.
Stop questioning Spock. He's not going to lie to you.
Call out if you spot anything. Don't be afraid to use your weapons.
With the exception of that last drop line, the ADR's been really well done. Probably the best I've seen with the exterior shots. That's my favorite. My favorite red shirt is Carver from the animated series. Carver, he's great. But I'm really digging the kind of blonde-haired, like big ass guy. This is like the second time I've seen him as a red shirt, second or third. I want our gray-haired security chief back. He's awesome. I always think of a newspaper when I see that. Like, this just in. Man faces self inside negative zone. Man defeated. My man probably, that was legit. That wasn't acting. Using that wind machine out there, he probably had so much shit in his eyes. Man, I think that they're leaving this kind of mystery too long before they get into. I don't understand. I mean, how many times does this guy fall?
He's coming out of it now.
I feel like I broke everything again.
You're on board the Enterprise.
The Rock,
That's my guy, the security guy.
I have some questions I want to ask you.
Not now, Jim.
It's necessary.
Yeah, he could fall off a cliff again any second.
If you want help from us, you better start telling the truth.
You wouldn't believe me if I told you.
We've seen some weird shit, buddy.
My planet. My Earth. Or what's left of it. Is down there beneath us. My spaceship is more than just that. It's a time chamber. A time ship.
Okay.
Help me! Give me the tools I need to kill him! The crystals! Don't let him get away! Don't let him get away!
Sedate this guy. Put him in the brig. That's the end of it.
He's in a lot of pain.
Sometimes pain can drive a man harder than pleasure. I'm sure you know that, Doctor.
That's a line that really needs dissected. Pain can drive a man harder than pleasure. I'll see myself out. Are we fucking seriously leaving this guy alone again? Ugh. This is taking leaps with Jim's command that I don't like. Like, just to prolong the story, we're like leaving this asshole alone, which never would have happened.
To locate and identify any object in our universe, be it energy or matter.
But by using those instruments, you were unable to identify the source of the radiation on the planet.
Not from your universe.
The source of radiation is not from our universe.
Nor in our universe, Captain. It came from outside.
It's peeking in.
What would happen if another
light bar?
Unquestionably a warp, a distortion of physical laws on an immense scale.
So like matter, antimatter?
What is your analysis of the mental state of Lazarus?
It's nuts.
One moment paranoid, the next calm, mild, rational. Almost as if he were
two different people.
This wild talk about a murdering creature who destroys civilizations. What's the purpose?
Jim, madness has no purpose or reason, but it may have a goal.
What's that? Destruction?
Two parallel universes project this. Or, more specifically, one matter, the other antimatter.
Matter and antimatter have a tendency to cancel each other out violently.
Precisely.
Jim looking down on Spock now. Role reversal.
Like both Lazarus. Only one is matter and the other antimatter.
They can't exist in the same spot.
Annihilation, Jim. Total, complete, absolute annihilation.
He used Jim to make sure he understood how serious this is. I'm going to take all these fuses. Out of curiosity, how would he know to do that?
The Energizer's shorted! Get out of here! Sound the alarm!
Come on, you too, Lieutenant.
No, I've got to stay with
Get out of here.
Oh, I like her. I like her a lot. Get out of here. How does he know how to do all this shit?
Sir, you shouldn't be in here.
Oh, I didn't know.
That poor kid. He's working himself through acting school. I mean, we're taking some exceptional leaps here as to what Lazarus should be able to know how to do.
As a security detail, follow me as soon as you can.
I need to have some explanation about how he can do this shit.
Energize.
The kid's back up. Can take a beating.
No! Don't! Not you!
Not you. God, this is confusing as shit. This is the arena where antimatter and matter collide, I guess. This just in. Captain James T. Kirk sent to negative zone. We stayed late to shoot that or got up early. I'm trying to see. That looks like a model. It is not. Boy, it certainly did.
I wasn't expecting you.
No. Him.
Yes, him. You understand?
Not completely.
That makes two of us.
I tried to stop him, Captain. That's why I took your dilithium crystals.
He has two more.
That's very bad, Captain. If he comes through at a time of his own choosing, he meant to come through. When you accidentally pass through, it drained his crystals. It'll take him about 10 minutes to re-energize. That should give us enough time.
Exactly what did I pass through?
That's hard to explain, Captain.
No shit.
I call it an alternative warp. It's sort of a negative magnetic corridor where the two parallel universes meet.
Surely Lazarus must realize what would happen if you should meet face to face outside the corridor.
Of course he knows, Captain. But he's mad. When our people found a way to slip through the warp and prove another universe, an identical one, existed.
Oh, so y'all caused this.
If we can force him into the corridor, while I'm waiting for him, we can put an end to this. You destroy his ship.
But if I destroy his ship, won't yours also be destroyed?
It will.
And your door will be closed.
But they'll be stuck in the tunnel.
You'll be trapped inside that corridor with him forever. At each other's throats throughout time.
Is it such a large price to pay for the safety of two universes?
It's noble. I don't understand what the fuck's going on, but it's noble. Breaking news. James T. Kirk back among his own universe. Gotcha, dickhead. Spock, knife this prick.
Stand back.
Or help me. Throw him in this flying saucer. Do you see the stuntman laughing? The stuntman smiled. I think he did anyway. He is smiling.
Take these crystals to the Enterprise.
I must destroy that ship completely.
What of Lazarus?
And what of Lazarus?
Look at that beauty. This is a weird episode.
Activate phaser banks.
Phaser banks activated.
Light them up.
Phaser standing by, sir.
Dramatic pause.
Biophasers. All right, Mr. Leslie, let's get out of here. Ahead, warp factor 1.
Warp 1, sir.
Yeah, now that that's over.
How would it be? Trapped forever with a raging madman at your throat. Until time itself came to a stop. For eternity.
The universe is safe.
For you and me. But what of Lazarus? What of Lazarus?
All right, my friends, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, season 1, episode, was it 27, The Alternative Factor. And the only thing left to do is to talk about it. All right, everyone, we just got done watching Star Trek, the original series, season 1, episode, again, I keep looking down, 27, The Alternative Factor. I didn't like this one. Again, let me preface everything here. I always take something away from all the Star Trek episodes that I watch. But this was bound to happen. We had a string of really, really, in my mind, again, if you like The Alternative Factor, I am never, ever going to yuck anybody's yum. I'm just going to tell you how I feel about it. And if someone comes up to me, and I've had plenty of people be like, man, I think you really missed the mark on Charlie X. You know what? You absolutely may be right. And I may have really missed the mark here on The Alternative Factor. So I have a list of whenever I have the original series episodes that I don't initially like. Charlie X and The Alternative Factor, the only two on the list right now. I fully intend to go back and rewatch them after enough time has passed to see if my original idea or my original feeling about them was true. And to give it a second chance, because sometimes I get thrown off by things that just annoy me. And I'll tell you, in Charlie X, it was the eye thing that Charlie did that annoyed me, and I didn't like. I just couldn't get back into it. So, but there's plenty of things I did like about Charlie X. The gymnasium scene is one of my favorite scenes because we get to see Bill Shatner doing his flips and martial arts and his gymnastics and stuff, which I think is cool as shit. Charlie X also had a couple of really kind of weird Twilight Zone moments in it, like when Charlie takes away the crewman's mouth. I mean, just really, really crazy shit. Yeah, and so again, while I say that I don't like Charlie X, I can't forget it. I probably thought more about Charlie X than most of the episodes because again, people have asked me, why don't you like Charlie X? And I revisit it quite a bit. So again, with that being said, please know that if I ever say, the alternative factor, I don't like it, I'm not going to say that, I can't believe anybody would like this fucking show. It sucks. No, I'm never going to say stuff like that. Now I'll never say never. If I come across something I truly find abhorrent, then you'll know. But this is certainly not that. But this is one of the weakest episodes for me that I've seen. And here's why. I think that the actual idea or the story of the episode is very intriguing. In fact, this is weird because this episode, and I don't know anything about Mirror Mirror, the future episode of Star Trek: The Next Generation, the original series. I don't know anything about Mirror Mirror other than Spock's got the goatee. It's like a negative evil version of different people and stuff like that. So strangely enough, this is almost like a prelude to that. If that's in truly in fact what it is, like the opposite effect type stuff. And while you have like the antimatter matter, there was also a distinct, calm, rational, you know violent, off kilter, versions of each of Lazarus. So that's what it mean. That certainly made me think, goodness, did the creative team kind of see this one and thought, we need to explore this more? Or, and I'm not going to speculate that they thought, hey, we didn't do it right the first time, let's try it again. I'm not going to say that because the idea behind this episode was very solid and was very cool, especially the thing I like the most about this episode. As soon as the initial event hit, that magnetic switch blink thing that Spock kind of coined, I love the fact that immediately they had like Commodore Barstow came through with what in the absolute fuck is going on? You all are on your own. I'm pulling everybody back 100 parsecs or whatever he said. And, you guys have to take care of it because this is a very dangerous galaxy-wide situation, which I thought was really cool. And as soon as that hit too, we had a really kind of very pronounced crosstalk going on the bridge where people were reporting in. You could hear all the stuff. I love shit like that. I think it's so good. Now, with that being said, it's surprising that I thought that it was, and again, this happens a couple times whenever I'm in an episode. I think I have a moment to say something and I'll say something and I step on somebody's line. And, if you were watching this on I usually try to edit that type of stuff out whenever I, step on a line that I don't mean to, or my end of my line picks up the top of the, Kirk's line or something like that. In this one, I did that a little bit at the beginning, because I was trying to stutter and spit out what I was trying to say. And I don't know if I missed a couple things. One, I don't even remember them naming him Lazarus, so I must have missed that. Secondly, this whole thing seemed super fucking disjointed. Like it really did. Like um, it was just kind of all over the place. I think they needed to explain what was going on, more towards the top third, and then let the resolution build over the last 2/3 of it. I think that there was like way too much. I, I'm, I had to accept things that I don't accept. And the number one thing in this episode that I was kind of forced to accept was that Jim is not taking this matter seriously. You can say, well, of course he's taking it seriously. Yes, he is. But in any other circumstance, if you had like a rogue personality like this that has a history, like Lazarus, he just leaves. He's leaving the bridge. He's walking around. He's leaving sick bay. It's like they needed Lazarus to be away from people when he made his switch. So they didn't do the obvious, which was like confine to quarters or put him in the brig or keep him sedated. None of that stuff was done, especially with the violent nature side of him. That how many times have we seen when somebody's like going? I think of Van Gelder in Dagger of the Mind, when Van Gelder was all over the place and just so obviously distraught, they kept him sedated. And so, I mean, you can say Lazarus was in the same type of mindset as, or same type of like reactionary, movements and stuff. That if Kirk or Bones said, we should sedate him, I don't think there'd be anybody that would say, "Oh my God, why? That seems out of the ordinary." The out of the ordinary thing was not doing something like that. And again, it's a choice because they had to have Lazarus kind of alone initially to make his switch. So they didn't immediately come up with the idea, "Oh, okay, this is a identical being, or a personality or whatever they might have initially thought switching between the two." Which, that's great and all. It's just that we know these characters. We know Kirk, Spock, Bones. We know everybody that would be in a position of authority to kind of make, Kirk and Spock kind of as authority figures, as captain and first officer, and Bones as chief medical officer. If they had said, hey, this has to happen to Lazarus, he has to go in the brig, confined to quarters, sedated. They didn't do any of that. And we know that they would have normally done something like that. And so we have to accept this kind of error in everybody's judgment that furthers the story. And I don't like stuff like that because it's you're weakening or hamstringing one of our characters, the characters that we love, the characters that we know how they would react. You're hamstringing them to tell the story. And I don't like that. If you want to tell your story, that's perfectly fine. I think it was a very strong story, to be honest with you. Just don't subvert the characters to make it easier on yourself as the writer. Does that make sense? It's like, okay, it would take a couple extra written scenes to kind of flesh this out and make it more believable that Kirk and Spock and McCoy weren't taking this as seriously maybe as they should have, with the confining to quarters brig or sedation. But they didn't. They didn't do anything like that. And I'll be honest with you too. I oftentimes when I'm watching this, I can see conventions that are being used to either draw out a scene or draw to time the episode. And this one, I mean, how many times during these like switches did we see like the fight and the long shot of the rotating camera and then a fight again and the explosion with like the big bang kind of still that would go up. And each one of those took 30 seconds, a minute, eating into our narrative for, the alternative factor. And I think that time would have been much better used either really concealing what was going on with Lazarus, like really making not even showing us what was going on with Lazarus and making this more of an explanation or an exploration, I should say, of like Spock and Bones and Kirk kind of, in periphery to figure out what was going on. You could say you can make it more fatal. There's always the kind of like man trap way. We've experienced people dying. We don't know why. Lazarus certainly isn't the cause of it. And then later we find out that yeah, we do have kind of a doppelganger type thing going on here. But I didn't like its approach to what was a very good story. Which would have been a really solid story if executed just a little bit differently. And I think that's the simplest way for me to put it, is that I love the idea of the story. I didn't like its implementation. And the main reason why I didn't like it was because it subverted our characters to get to where it needed to be. That's about it. I didn't like the language that was used, the dialogue that was used. I thought that this was a very, very good example of Bill Shatner falling into that pattern that is stereotyped with him with his acting, where he slows things down. We're starting to see that again and again and again. And I'm thinking that again, this is obviously, the weight of carrying a TV show. I've said this before, but the weight of carrying a TV show on his shoulders and then having to learn all these lines, he gets into the bad habit of kind of like a slowed pace, like a really robotic kind of pace for his memorization. And that's a shame because it's really nothing that he can do. There's really nothing that he can work on to make that better other than to have more time. And I don't think he didn't have it. We know Bill Shatner can act. We saw it in the first half of basically most of the season. He's been extraordinary, surprising with his acting to me. Now we're starting to see some of that pitter patter stuff that he's kind of unfortunately known for. And again, by no means, and this goes for Charlie X too, do I hate Charlie X or do I hate the alternative factor? The problem is in the original series, season 1 that I've seen so far, I have a very obvious kind of spectrum of comparison here. When you've got a balance of terror, when you've got a where no man has gone before, then you're going to compare a Charlie X or an alternative factor to those. And they were weighed, they were measured, and they were found wanting. So, but that's it for now. And I'm going to go back and revisit both of those. But you know what? As far as the alternative factor goes, we know that there was something going on behind the scenes. There always is in Star Trek. And so we need to figure out what these things are. We need to learn more. We need to dig down and see maybe there's a reason why this one was a little disjointed. And by a little, I mean a lot. But let's address that. And let's see. But we just need some help. Who could we? I know. Q? Greetings, mon capitans, and welcome to another installment of Q&A. Friends, this is where, after having watched and reacted to an episode of the original series, I like to do a deeper dive into the episode, specifically behind the scenes, to figure out what went on in the production of the alternative factor. Today, we'll be discussing 5 specific categories to make sure that I don't ramble. Those specific categories are 1, who was our writer, who was our director, 2, who were our guest stars, 3, of the core cast, or the big 6, who was present, 4, our production notes, where in this episode specifically the real story lies, and number 5, our memorable quote for the episode. Friends, let's get started. All right, everyone, for our very first category, who was our writer and who was our director, we have 2 Star Trek rookies that made their debut here in the alternative factor. Our writer was Don Ingalls, and our director was Gerd Oswald. Again, a very difficult shoot for Gerd to kind of walk right into because we had exterior shooting. We had, we'll get into this in the production notes, but it was a very, very trying shoot. And I hate to see that for somebody who just walked into Star Trek, but Gerd was gifted with a terrible situation. And I believe that Oswald did the best he could with it. So, again, we'll get more into this, but just keep those two and keep some sympathy in your heart for these two whenever we get deeper into our Q&A. All right, friends, our guest stars, who were they? Well, we had some really good guest stars in this one, I have to say. Janet McLaughlin played Charlene Masters. I thought she was excellent. Definitely the star of the guest stars. I would love to see Masters' character brought back and developed more. I really enjoyed her acting. It was very fluid, very organic, and her delivery was just spot on, and it really, really worked with Star Trek. I thought that it was conversational, but it was also had like an air of authority to it. I know that seems a lot for somebody that only had a couple lines, but they were memorable lines. And whenever you can hear somebody kind of deliver like that, you know that that character needs to have more airtime. But anywho, Masters was fantastic and portrayed by Janet McLaughlin. Our second, who was that dickhead in Sulu's chair? Well, it's none other than Eddie Paskey. Anytime I see Eddie, I always call him that because he pops up quite a bit in Star Trek. And I love seeing anybody that's familiar to me and kind of comes in and, creates that thread of continuity outside of the big 6. I love seeing kind of the peripheral crew members continually, like even our big security guy, the blonde guy. I love seeing just kind of, the background stays the same, and we're aware that there are other permanent residents on the Enterprise. And so Eddie Paskey is definitely that, playing Leslie in the chair. Not a dickhead, but at least I don't know. I mean, I don't think so. We'll give him the benefit of the doubt. And then last but certainly not least, Robert Brown played Lazarus. Now, here is the fun kind of tease before we get to the production notes. Robert Brown was not playing Lazarus about 25 hours before shooting actually began. He was given it in the 11th hour. More on that and more on who actually was supposed to play Lazarus when we get to production notes. Now, of our core cast, or the Big Six, who was present? Let's identify the Big Six real quick. We have Kirk, Spock, Bones, Uhura, Scotty, and Sulu. Of those Big Six, who was there? Well, everyone was there except for Scotty and for Sulu. Of course, Sulu was, again, you all have mentioned quite a bit. He was in the middle of finishing up, I believe it was Green Berets with John Wayne. And so he, again, these kind of on and off things were primarily because of the shooting and the reshooting that was done for that movie. And so what I have been also told is that most of the main six, or our big six, become very static cast members, and we don't see or feel their absence nearly as much in seasons 2 and 3. But again, they were working through kind of prior commitments and things like that, so this should be the end of that type of stuff for Takei. Now, with James Doohan and Scotty, it was strange, and a lot of people know, kind of marked this in reviews and things that I read specifically for the episode, in that we did have a very kind of heavy engineering element to this episode with the draining of the dilithium crystals. We had, action taking place in engineering, and so it's often questioned as to why Scotty wasn't kind of available for this episode, and a lot of the lines and kind of actions were given to Master's character, and played by Janet McLaughlin. But again, there was never really any real response. Like, Doohan didn't have any conflicts, and it wasn't even mentioned why he wasn't asked to be a part of the call for this episode. So that's kind of a nebulous, strange thing. But regardless, no Scotty, no Sulu. And now, my friends, we get into, and I haven't said this before for a Q&A production notes, but I'm saying it now for the alternative factor. 27 episodes into season 1. The story behind the story is better than the alternative factor that we watched, because holy hell did this, plagued by problems is a dramatic understatement for the alternative factor. Normally, we've talked about this before. Things can have, episodes of any TV series have this kind of familiar woes. Script problems where there needs to be kind of 11th hour rewrites. You have production problems where weather or exterior shooting, or, problems with the set or problems with the props kind of, delay things to the point where the entire shooting schedule gets compromised. But they've experienced those things before, they being the Star Trek production team, and they've overcome easily. I do think that this is the first time that you can actually see these problems in the final product, where there is there's a weakness to and again, if you like the alternative factor, this is not me yucking yum. This is me just saying, I'm actually in awe that this ever came about. Let's get into it so you can see exactly what happened behind the scenes here. Again, when they write a script, it's usually sitting on the shelf for quite a long time before it's kind of plucked and, kind of polished up. We talked about in the past that DC Fontana and Gene L. Kuhn were usually kind of tasked with, hey, remember when we got that script from Don Ingalls? Look through that and see if, there's anything else that we need to do to it to get it ready for shooting. And so Gene L. Kuhn and DC Fontana, normally it was the two of them, Roddenberry occasionally, but it was normally those two, Kuhn and Fontana, who would look through it and get it ready for, final print and hand it out to the actors and ready for shooting. And so the problem with it is as soon as they pulled this down, a completely forgotten storyline was made relevant. In the original script, it was a call for Lazarus and Masters to develop a romantic relationship that led to Masters helping Lazarus kind of get about the ship, and, kind of made sense of why Lazarus was able to have, kind of like free reign to the Enterprise. But the problem with that is as soon as Gene Roddenberry saw it, which was one of the rare instances where he did a pass through on the script. He saw it and he said, absolutely not. This is similar to Space Seed. We had Khan seduce a female member of the crew. And apparently, and again, this is kind of speculation and rumor that I read in two specific instances, Roddenberry wasn't a fan of that in Space Seed. He didn't like the idea that a crew member of the Enterprise could be compromised, regardless of how, devastatingly handsome Ricardo Montalban is. But so he absolutely refused. And I will paraphrase, he wrote a memo out to the other creatives that said, in a nutshell, we're never doing this again. He didn't like it. He didn't like the idea that there was any way to compromise the loyalty of a Starfleet member, a Starfleet officer, to the point where they would betray the crew. He didn't want that. He wanted not necessarily undying loyalty, but at the same time, he wanted honor spread throughout every rank and file of the Enterprise's crew. I appreciate and like that very much. And also just for the simple fact that you don't want to double up on a storyline. But this was one of the few times that I've seen so far where Roddenberry actually stepped forward and said, nope, we're out. And out they were. So, of course, this threw a lot of the production into flux because things had to be rewritten and then things started to not make sense. And we'll get back to this in a little bit, where Lazarus is kind of given, hey, just walk about the ship, go wherever you'd like, and without the master's element of the storyline there, it looked and felt very different for fans who were watching and kind of questioning why this was allowed. But let's get to that in a second. Now, the alternative factor was also plagued with production woes beyond the script variety, in that they were at the Vasquez Natural Park, where they do a lot of the exterior shots. We saw it with Shore Leave. It's usually their go-to area because it's so diverse as far as, you have the rocks that you can use to climb like an arena, so it offers a lot of variation for shooting. The problem is that Gerd Oswald was given, numerous shoots to do, numerous like scenes to film outside, and apparently several of them were overlooked. They were not given to him in his final like production schedule. And so in the end of the week, they had to redress an interior studio set to try to look as much like Vasquez as possible, to have that kind of, I think it was the conversation between Kirk and Auntie Lazarus kind of inside the Phantom Zone or wherever the hell it was. So again, they had to do a brand new redress of a set and do some production that cost them time and money. And in addition to that, there was supposed to, at least it was called in the script, they wanted a brand new set for the Phantom Zone, where we saw them kind of fighting in photo negative and twirling. There were supposed to be scenes that were going to be played out in that space. The problem is that no one made that space. And so, Gerd Oswald's not getting out there with a hammer and paint to make this place. That's not his job. And so when he shows up and he's like, well, where am I supposed to shoot this? There were big eyes from the rest of the production team because they realized they didn't have that place. So scenes that were to be shot inside the zone were then moved to outside the zone, which really goofed with continuity. Which we see in the episode. And in addition to that, obviously not being able to have any of those scenes spoken about, they had to film them in such a way that was not necessarily time consuming, but a more labor intensive process, where they had to, make up the rig to spin the camera. And again, like I told you, it takes a long time to set up a shot like that with the older cameras, but it's not insurmountable. It'll probably just, cost them a little bit of time. But then they had to develop the film in two different ways to produce the photo negative effect that we saw that they superimposed over that still of the nebula. And so again, there was a lot that had to be kind of done on the post-production side, sort of, that lengthened and made this shoot even more difficult on the actual shooting dates. There was just problems throughout this episode. Every corner that was turned, there was another problem facing the production team and Gerd Oswald. Now, we talked about this in the guest stars, and friends, this is the craziest thing that I've heard so far in my Q&As. Okay, so what ended up happening was this. Robert Brown was given the role of Lazarus less than a day before shooting actually began. He did not have to audition. He did not have to script read with anybody. He was literally given the role. Please take it. He had huge reservations about taking it, but because he was a friend of Bill Shatner, he did it for his friend as a favor. And like I said, I don't think Robert Brown did a bad job. In fact, knowing that he had that little time to prepare, I mean, a tip of the cap. It was very impressive to get that done in that time. But why did Robert Brown need to come in at the 11th hour to take over for the role of Lazarus? Well, actor John Drew Barrymore, son of John Barrymore, famed stage actor and father of Drew Barrymore from E.T. and many other movies, John Drew Barrymore, who was an accomplished film, TV, and stage actor himself, was to play the role of Lazarus. And 24 hours before Robert Brown became Lazarus, John Drew Barrymore, received the script, the final script. He read through his part and contacted production to tell them he would not be showing up. Again, there are no specifics of this conversation. Nothing was recorded or transcribed, but the feeling in the production team was he saw that Lazarus, the totality of Lazarus's lines, and realized that, at least in his mind, the role sucked. And he would not be putting his name on it. Okay, so that happens. They had everything, the costumes, everything was geared towards, John Drew Barrymore. And in the 11th hour, Robert Brown has to come in and play Lazarus. Brown was like 4 inches taller than Barrymore. He was thinner framed. So, of course, everything had to be recut. They had apparently costume changes for him. But they couldn't do it because they didn't have time to make anything different for him. And then, of course, like the makeup was off, so they tried to, he was supposed to have a beard, and then they had that wispy thing, and all kinds of problems, friends. And so here's the craziest part about this, because I've heard about things like this before, but back in the day, this had to have been a huge problem. John Drew Barrymore, because this was a Screen Actors Guild associated, contractual obligation that he had with Star Trek and Desilu, Desilu filed a complaint. And they said, hey, listen, this is a grievance. He promised to be here, and under no, you can get out of things for family deaths and things like that. But there was no real reason why no accepted reason why he pulled out, other than he didn't like it, which that you can't do that. And so Barrymore was suspended, at least from any SAG production, for 6 months. Now, 6 months doesn't seem like a long time, but as I read and was made aware when doing this research, back in the day, any 6-month segment from a year that you were to cut would be very bad for somebody in Barrymore's position. You're either going to miss the majority of a TV season, or you're going to miss pilot season, which means you're not going to have the opportunity to become a lead somewhere or a supporting cast member on an established show or a brand new series. So Barrymore had to know what he was getting into, and what the potential ramifications for his actions could be. And he hated the role of Lazarus so much that he said, damn it, I'm not coming. And he didn't, stuck to his guns, and was suspended for it for 6 months by SAG. In our last section, my friends, last but certainly not least, memorable quotes from The Alternative Factor, the 27th episode of Star Trek Season 1. I had to go with this one to basically sum up everything that we have discussed. Kirk says to Bones, sometimes pain can drive a man harder than pleasure. I think that line, taken in whatever way you would like, basically sums up the entire production experience of The Alternative Factor. And my friends, thus ends another installment of Q&A. Until we meet again, behave.